Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the group exhibition Hydrogen, Fuel Cells and Batteries at the Hannover Fair 2018. I invite you to sit down, order a drink and enjoy the next interview. My name is Falco Haag and I will lead you through the next 20 minutes. And our interview partner will be Mr. Johannes Pallasch from the German organization Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Technology, NOW. And he is team leader and head of the program Recharching Infrastructure. And there he tries to spread the idea of electric driving and will now speak with us about the status quo of building up the charging infrastructure in Germany. Please welcome Mr. Pallasch. And to the audience, if you have specific questions, feel free to raise your hand and join the discussion. Okay, Mr. Pallasch, let's begin with a small question. What does your daily work at NOW look like?
Yeah, we have a small team with some 6-7 people who are planning the network for Germany, the fast charging network, but also the normal charging network. And we have to look where the areas without infrastructure, and we try to build up a whole network for Germany within the next years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I found one point on your internet webpage that crucial to the setting up of a charging infrastructure is the charging strategy. Especially of the particular electric vehicle. Which kinds of strategies do you distinguish?
Well, I think still it's very important that in each scenario the base is the home charging and the charging at work. And I think most of the charging will be there. But we also need a fast charging strategy, and that means that people can drive longer distance, for example, until 600 kilometers without problems. And so we focus on this strategy of fast charging. And there's also a third part, in between charging. That means when you have time at a supermarket or somewhere else, then you should have the possibility to charge. And that could be both normal charging, fast charging. But with our funding program, we focus on fast charging with most of the money, but also with like 100 million euros on this in between charging.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you said that people are able to load at home or on the stations, but how can a customer-friendly charging infrastructure be achieved?
Well, that's a big issue. I think one of the major topics in the last years were the authentication. The people need only one card for charging in Germany. That is the goal. And one card or one app, it's almost the same. And in the past, you need like 10, 30, 50 cards to charge in Germany. And now with the funding program, we force the applicants to use the roaming system. And so the charging cards can be used at each funding or at each station that get funding money.
Okay, so the customer has one card,
yeah.
And behind this card is their name and their bank konto.
ID, it's only just the ID. You never see the name at the station, so it's just the ID.
Okay, and back to the funding program. Which types of charging infrastructure or what is funded at all?
As I told, we focus on fast charging and high power charging with this funding program by the German government. Totally we have like 300 million euros within the next 3 years. And 200 million euros are for fast charging. And so that I think it's enough to implement a nationwide network with a lot of charge points.
Okay, and can you say or give us a number how many additional charging stations are built thanks to the funding?
Yeah, that's okay. In the past, we had like 500 fast charging points in Germany, And well, in the last year we had 2 calls. And the first call we got money for 1,500 new charging points, as fast charging points. And with the last call, only for high power charging, we will get 1,000 more. So at the end we will have like 3,000 fast charging points in Germany within the next year. So.
Okay, and can you say where will these fast charging stations be located? All in big cities, for example, or are they spread around Germany? Or is there? Do you have an idea about the regions where most of these charging points will installed?
So that's quite different. Some of them are at the German Autobahn, some of them are in the city center. So it's well, we spread it over all the several areas and several regions. So there were like several regions focused within the core. So I think everyone gets some newest charging stations in Germany now.
Okay, great. And how long will it take? I didn't get a. Is it until the end of the funding period, or how long does it take until the 3,000 charging stations will be installed at the Autobahns and in every region?
So some of them are already built in the last month, but most of them will be built up in the next month or the next year.
Okay, so it's only about a few years.
Well, they get funding now, and they have to start to build when they get the funding, and then they need some months or half a year to build up the station, and then they can be available for the customer. So
great. Okay, great. Thanks. What were the most important research or development steps in the last years? I mean, what are the successes and where are still challenges?
Talking about research, I think most important is a change from AC charging to DC charging. When we started with e-mobility, we were just talking about AC charging. And then we saw, okay, there is a need for longer distance and fast charging, and industry changed to DC charging. And the question is, what is the highest capacity of charging that is useful for the customer? So we are talking about 300 kilowatt capacity or more, but it's still research.
Okay, and did there also some standards came out, or some new regulations from the government, for example, that made it more easier to develop the infrastructure next to the funding program?
I think there happened a lot in the beginning of the funding years in 2012, 13, 14, and the industry developed a lot of standards. So the problem now is more the metering, and this is not really tricky. That's not easy to solve, and we hope that industry will do it until the end of the year, because until now it's not able to meter electricity at the charging point correctly.
Okay, and is this what you call the roaming system, that every charging station has to be connected to a system that is online or something?
So this roaming is separated, but it's very important. For example, if a person from here wants to get access in Freiburg or in Munich, so he needs a roaming system in the background. Also, from a European perspective, it's very important to have roaming platforms, so that I can charge in future perhaps in Spain or Italy or somewhere else.
Okay, and if I want to apply for funding, can you tell us how much of the funding is left now, and does it still make sense for present companies here in the audience to apply for that money?
I think that's still 150, 160, 170 million left, so there's enough money for the next years.
Okay, and can you give us an overview who invests in and operates these recharging stations?
So that's quite different. When we talk about normal charging, we have also restaurants, or we have like cities and utilities. When we talk about fast charging, it's more about utilities and bigger companies, because it's a little bit more tricky to handle this technique.
Okay, and for example, actually international oil companies, they fuel actually the road transport and individual mobility. does that change in the future, or so? Do you think companies like British Petrol will support fast chargers on their existing sites, for example?
Yeah, we have some big applicants from this branch. I cannot tell you the name, but they will build up charging stations at their ground, at their normal oil ground, and we still talk with other companies about this issue. So they know that they have to do something, and they now try to implement this in the business case.
Okay, I mean, do they really have the interest to sell power on their sites?
We will see.
Okay. You mentioned last year that it needs cost-efficient models from the producers, like small city cars. Do we meanwhile have electric vehicles that a majority can afford?
I think it's still a problem that there are not enough cars available for the customers. For example, when you go out and you want to buy a car for your parents, for example, it's not really easy. The last years we were always talking about the chicken-egg problem, and that means that we do not have enough infrastructure on the street. And we are on the good way to solve this infrastructure problem. So what we need now is are cars, and cars that are going to the charging station and who buys electricity.
By the way, are there any questions from the audience? Okay. I still have some questions. How does the coexisting efforts with hydrogen and with green fuels and with batteries influence the speed of the energy transition in the mobility sector?
That's a tricky question. I think today it's okay that we focus on each technology, but I think in some years we have to think about how we can think the things together. Hydrogen, for example, with charging infrastructure. So it will happen in the future, but today they are making their own business, each of them.
Okay, and does the energy transition, so coming to green fuels, the speed, does it be slower now because of the, so to say, competing technologies? What do you think?
So I don't think so, because we have a technology open strategy by the government. So I think it will be the right for the moment. But we have to think about, as I told you, who you will give the money in the future, because we could not spend money in each technology in the same way.
So is it right that at the moment we look forward and we try to develop every technology, and the one that suits not only the whole system, but there are also different kind of demand. If you only go small distance in the cities, for example, this is another demand, and maybe in the future there will be different solutions next to each other, right?
That's right. For example, I think the battery industry or battery cars need also hydrogen, because also in the future they are not able to drive like 600, 700, 800 kilometers. So I think it's we need both at the end.
All right. Again, the question: so how far already the infrastructure is installed, not only in Germany, but how does it look like in other countries in Europe? Can you say something about that? For example, when I want to drive with my electric vehicle to Italy?
So better you don't go to Italy. You should go to the Netherlands or to Scandinavia, perhaps England. So the northwestern part of Europe is developed when you focus on infrastructure. In the south or Poland, it's a little bit different. So I think, well, it's not always the same picture in Europe. And we have, for the German customer, it's very important, for example, that they can go for vacation in each part of Europe. And so we are very happy that now Ionity, the joint venture by the industry of the big car companies, focus on this long distance charging infrastructure, and will solve this problem.
Okay, and we are still speaking about fast charging infrastructure, right?
It's always, in this case, it's fast charging, and well, of course, if you are in the Netherlands, of course, you need like normal charging at your.
Okay, so we can also charge our electric vehicles during the night everywhere in Europe.
Yeah, but very important, the European Union focus, for example, we're talking about standards, that we have the same plug in each nation, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain. So it's possible, thanks to the European Union, and that makes the thing very easy. Next step will be, as I told you, the roaming system for whole Europe. So this is, well, not yet solved.
Looking to other charging infrastructure, is there an integrated approach with the charging infrastructure for power-based fuels, for hydrogen, and the now upcoming redox flow batteries, for example?
Not yet, but talking about integrated concepts of, it's able, for example, at the funding program that you can get money for batteries, also for stationary batteries. And you can make like concepts, charging infrastructure together with batteries and everything. But, well, as you asked before, it's not possible.
Okay. Yeah, one thing, what I was talking about with also friends of mine, in Germany, people, before they think about driving with batteries, they call for the option to drive freely to each imaginable distance. Even though that most driven distances, in fact, are far beneath 100 kilometers. The daily driving distance is not more than 100 kilometers. Do you think this attitude to ask for the complete infrastructure before thinking about buying electronic vehicles, this attitude changes, or is it not necessary to change anymore?
Well, some people say that it will change, but I'm not sure. I think there's still people want to go to vacation or drive like 500-600 kilometers, and they don't like to charge for an hour between. So I don't think so that it will change in the next years.
Ah, okay, that's that. Because I had the impression of if you want to go to holidays, just take another car.
Yeah, but that means that you need two cars. Yeah, and where's the second car coming from? So yeah, we need concepts for the mass market and not for some small groups. So talking about mass market, it's not able to that you have one car and in vacations like 20 million people want to have a second car and it wouldn't work.
I think all the time about car sharing.
Okay. Yeah, that's also a topic. But a lot of people want to own their car. So
yes, that's
I think
right.
it will be still the same in 2 or 3 years. Perhaps in future it will be different, but the next 3 years, I don't think so.
And I think it's the same everywhere in Europe, not only in Germany, where they want to own its own car, and this one car has to be able to go everywhere. We already had a small outlook to the future. Maybe can you conclude a little bit what will happen in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years to this electronic driving in Germany?
I think the most important topic is that with this funding program by the German government, we are able to solve this chicken egg problem. And that we build up a nationwide network that is very strong. And I think the customer will be very happy with that. And, well, the biggest issue, from my point of view, are the cars. So, yeah.
Okay, so we have some producers here on the fair. I think they are encouraged, and it will happen then in the next years, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pallasch, for this really interesting interview. Thank you for the audience. And you can find now NOW GmbH just straight ahead in this direction and get into contact and have further discussions. Thank you.